Folks, it's barely started and already it's a hot mess.
And this is the crowd that has gathered just in the past sort of half an hour or so. They arrived about 3:35. A lot of them were here because of the media.
It's a disaster in the making, Dan.
When Prince Harry and Meghan Markle touched down in Australia, this was supposed to be a return, a moment, a comeback to a country that once adored them. But almost immediately, something felt off. There were no screaming crowds waiting at the airport, no electric atmosphere, no frenzy, no cameras flashing as they stepped out into the spotlight. Instead, they arrived quietly, almost too quietly. They skipped the traditional photo opportunity entirely, leaving the airport in a convoy without stopping to acknowledge the press. It was controlled, low-key, deliberate. And then came the moment that said everything.
But the big crowd that they have seen today was at the Royal Children's Hospital. This was at lunchtime. There were hundreds of people.
As they walked into the Royal Children's Hospital, Melbourne, their very first stop, the crowd gathered to greet them didn't erupt into cheers. There was no roar, no overwhelming excitement. Instead, a hush fell over the room. And then, softly, awkwardly, almost uncertainly, a quiet, collective whisper. Hi. Not a chant, not applause, just hesitation. It was subtle, but it was powerful. Because in that moment, you could feel it. Something had changed. This wasn't 2018 anymore. Back then, they were everything. Newly married, radiating excitement. The future of the monarchy.
I mean, I feel like we are mugs, Sophie. These guys are grifters par excellence. I call them the ginger and the whinger. There's no public-facing events. Everything's by invitation only. There's a couple of things, as you saw today at the Royal Children's Hospital, but that's just to give a bit of, froth and bubble out there for the media. Most of this is a commercial enterprise. It's to make money.
When they toured Australia that year, crowds flooded the streets. People screamed their names. There was energy, anticipation, obsession. They weren't just popular. They were magnetic, untouchable. Now, the energy is different, quieter, more cautious, and for some, completely gone. Because this trip isn't just another visit. It's happening after everything, after they stepped away from royal duties in 2020, after the interviews, the fallout, the years of controversy, after redefining themselves, not as working royals, but as independent figures trying to build something new.
Now, leading figures in the Australian media that I've spoken to have described this trip as a new low for Harry. They're not happy. They've said that the trip is going to backfire horribly. Australia are not happy at all.
And that's where the tension begins. Because what exactly are they now? That question follows them everywhere, including Australia. On paper, this visit looks familiar. Charity stops, hospital visits, meetings with community organizations, the kind of work they used to do as official members of the royal family. But this time, it's different. This isn't a royal tour. It's not backed by the palace. It's not part of any formal duty. This is something else, and people are noticing. Because alongside the charity work, alongside the emotional visits and carefully curated moments, there's another layer to this trip, a commercial one.
Why did you think you'd stop on your walk today?
Well, we're actually just on a quick lunchtime walk. We work around the corner, saw the crowd gathered, asked your video guy what's going on, and it's only so often that you stumble across elite ginger.
While they spend time with sick children and vulnerable communities, they're also attending private events, ticketed appearances, paid speaking engagements, and perhaps most controversially, Meghan Markle is set to headline an exclusive wellness retreat in Sydney, a multi-day experience with ticket prices reaching into the thousands. Yoga, manifestation, sound healing, a girls' weekend like no other, for a price. And suddenly, the tone of the trip shifts, because now it's not just about what they're doing. It's about why they're doing it.
Much more downgraded way of getting here. They arrived here just after 6:30 on a commercial jet.
I've never seen anybody look so refreshed getting off a flight from the US. He looked great. Okay. Prince Harry, yeah?
What about Meghan?
I didn't see her.
Critics are already asking the question out loud. Is this still service, or is it branding? Is this about helping people, or building a business? And that question only gets louder when you look closer at how this visit unfolded. They didn't arrive like royals. They flew commercial, business class on a Qantas flight from Los Angeles to Melbourne, a detail that, on the surface, feels intentional. relatable, almost humble.
I spoke with quite a few of the passengers who came out into the arrivals area here at Melbourne Airport, and they said that they were really quite gobsmacked to have the Duke and Duchess on board their flight. This is what some of them had to say.
Some passengers even praised it, calling it admirable that Prince Harry chose not to fly privately. But others saw it differently, because even that choice, flying commercial, becomes part of the narrative, part of the image, a signal that they are trying to present themselves in a certain way, more grounded, more accessible, more normal. And yet, at the same time, they're hosting events that cost thousands of dollars to attend. That contrast is hard to ignore, and it's exactly why reactions to their arrival have been so divided.
Harry and Meghan, welcome to Australia. Welcome to Australia. What are you most looking forward to?
Everything. It's been great. Nice to be back.
Meghan, how does this make you feel?
Oh, so grateful to be here. Thank you.
Some people are genuinely happy to see them. On the flight, passengers described friendly conversations, warm interactions, even surprise at how relaxed the couple seemed after such a long journey. In the hospital, children smiled, families gathered, and for a moment, it felt like the old magic was still there. Meghan hugged patients. Harry shook hands and spoke easily with those around him. They posed for photos, they listened, they engaged. For the people in that room, especially the children, it mattered. Those moments were real. But outside those walls, the mood is far more complicated.
What Australians are saying about Harry and Meghan, and saying that they are grifters, that's the reporting in Australia, and that they are using the country like an ATM. They're watching what the media down under are saying with a lot of interest.
Because while they were greeting patients inside the hospital, a completely different conversation was happening outside of it. A growing number of people are questioning the entire premise of the visit. They're no longer working royals. They stepped away. They made that choice very clear. So why does this tour still look like one? Why does it feel like a royal visit without actually being one? And more importantly, who is paying for it? Because despite claims that the trip is privately funded, reports have emerged that local taxpayers may still be covering certain security costs. That alone has sparked serious backlash. An online petition opposing public spending on their protection has already gathered tens of thousands of signatures. Tens of thousands. That's not just criticism, that's organized frustration, and it feeds directly into a much larger narrative that has been building around them for years. The idea that Harry and Meghan are trying to hold on to the status of royalty while operating completely outside of it, that they've stepped away from the institution, but not from the benefits that come with being associated with it.
I mean, if you want to see Harry, it's $2,000 for a seat. If you want to watch him online, it's about $500. If you go along to this ridiculously named wellness retreat, it's called Her Best Life Retreat with Meghan, it's going to cost you $3,000. I mean, I know what Australians think of it, but how's it going down with the punters in the UK?
That this entire trip, the charity, the appearances, the events, is something in between. Not quite royal, not quite celebrity, something harder to define. A quasi-royal tour. And for some critics, that's exactly the problem, because it raises uncomfortable questions about authenticity, about intention, about whether this is truly about helping people or about maintaining relevance in a world that moves on quickly. And nowhere is that tension more visible than in the contrast between their public image and the reality unfolding around them.
Australian people are as real as it gets, okay? Sometimes brutally so. They don't take any prisoners, the Australians. They take no nonsense, and they don't like fakes, and they don't like phonies.
Inside the hospital, Meghan Markle is hugging a child, offering words of encouragement, telling them to stay strong. It's warm, it's emotional, it's the kind of moment that defines their public persona. But outside, headlines are questioning the cost of their security. Commentators are debating their motives, and experts are openly suggesting that this entire trip may be an attempt to monetize their royal status. That word, monetize, keeps coming up, and once you hear it, it's hard to ignore. Because suddenly, every moment starts to look different. Every appearance, every interaction, every carefully chosen setting, even that quiet hi in the hospital starts to feel symbolic, not just of a subdued crowd, but of a shift in how they are perceived. Less like untouchable royals, more like public figures trying to navigate a new identity, one that doesn't quite fit into any single category. And the deeper this visit goes, the more that question lingers. Who are they now? Because whatever the answer is,
There were other people who were saying that they really respected the fact that they weren't obviously burning extra emissions by taking a private jet, and they were showing that they were one of the people. Some of the other passengers said that they were chatting to them about their kids and what they were going to be doing here, and they described them as being incredibly pleasant and very polite.
Australia may be the place where it finally becomes clear. If the first moments of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's arrival felt quiet, what followed only made things more complicated. Because inside the walls of the Royal Children's Hospital, Melbourne, the atmosphere told one story, but outside, a completely different one was taking shape. Inside, it looked like compassion. Harry moved easily through the crowd, stopping to speak with patients, crouching down to their level, asking questions about their care, their lives, their experiences.
And also, I think, as is typical with the fake Duchess, a lot of lies. A lot of lies designed to make us think that this is a success rather than the ultimate financial disaster which is coming because of a lack of ticket sales.
There was a naturalness to it, something that reminded people of who he used to be within the royal system. Someone comfortable in these spaces, someone who understood how to connect. Meghan, meanwhile, leaned fully into the emotional weight of the moment. She didn't just wave, she didn't just smile. She hugged children, she held their hands. She spoke to them softly, offering encouragement, telling them to stay strong. At one point, a young patient handed Harry flowers. Another said, Meghan told her to keep being brave. These are the kinds of moments that linger, the kind that feel genuine, the kind that are hard to criticize. And yet, the criticism didn't stop. Because the deeper this visit went, the harder it became to separate those moments from everything surrounding them.
They want those good headlines. We know Harry is in court with his former charity centre, Barley. This is a PR exercise to try and repair their very badly damaged reputation.
After leaving the hospital, Meghan Markle didn't retreat into privacy. She stepped directly into another carefully chosen setting, a women's refuge in Melbourne, a place supporting victims of domestic violence and homelessness. There, she put on an apron and began serving food, cooking, smiling, moving through the kitchen as if it were second nature. On the surface, it was powerful imagery. A duchess, or former duchess, standing in a shelter kitchen, preparing meals for vulnerable women. It sends a message. It creates a visual. It tells a story about empathy, about service, about connection to real people facing real struggles. But again, there's another layer. Because while she was serving food in that shelter, she was also wearing a designer outfit worth over $1,000.
We do know that taxpayers are paying for their very hefty security costs.
While she was positioning herself as relatable, approachable, grounded, she was simultaneously promoting an image tied to luxury, exclusivity, and high-end branding. And that contrast, that constant tension between accessibility and privilege, is becoming impossible to ignore. It's not just what they're doing. It's how it looks. It's how it feels. It's how it's being interpreted. Because at the exact same time these images are circulating, Meghan in a kitchen, Harry with children, another reality is unfolding just a few kilometers away. A reality where tickets are being sold, thousands of dollars for access, for proximity, for experience. The upcoming wellness retreat in Sydney isn't just a casual gathering. It's being marketed as an exclusive high-end escape, a curated experience built around Meghan herself. Attendees will pay thousands for the chance to be there, for yoga sessions, for guided manifestation, for sound healing, and for something even more intangible, proximity to her brand. And that word matters now more than ever.
And you know, when you work in the media, you watch someone's camera awareness. I think Harry's there at the hospital genuinely in the moment. She knows exactly where the camera is. I mean, she is an actress. She's working the angles. It's all fake smiles. You can read it, can't you?
Brand. Because what we're witnessing in Australia doesn't feel like a traditional tour. It feels like something else entirely. Something more strategic, more calculated, more commercial. Even Prince Harry's role in this visit reflects that shift. He's not here as a representative of the monarchy. He's here as a speaker, a figurehead for conversations around mental health, scheduled to appear at a high-level summit, delivering a keynote on workplace well-being. Again, on the surface, it aligns perfectly with his long-standing advocacy. It makes sense. But it's also part of a paid event structure. Different tiers, different prices, different levels of access. And once again, the same question emerges. Where does service end? And where does business begin? Because the line between those two things is becoming increasingly blurred. And the public is noticing, not just quietly, not just passively, but actively.
So if you think that the Australians are excited about this trip, think again, right? It's not happening.
As their visit continues, so does the backlash. Concerns over security costs have escalated. Despite repeated messaging that the trip is privately funded, reports indicate that local authorities are still involved in ensuring their safety. And for many Australians, that raises a serious issue. Why should taxpayers contribute, even indirectly, to the protection of individuals who are no longer working members of the royal family? That question has struck a nerve. An online petition opposing the use of public funds has already gathered more than 45,000 signatures. That number is not insignificant. It reflects something deeper than casual annoyance. It reflects frustration, skepticism, a sense that something about this visit doesn't sit right. And the criticism isn't just coming from the public. Commentators, analysts, and royal experts are becoming increasingly direct in their assessments.
And as the couple touch down in one of the most beautiful countries in the world, they arrive in a land where they're not wanted, where there is a petition to prevent their visit. And with locals furious that they'll have to shoulder some of the cost of the couple's security.
Some are openly suggesting that this entire trip represents a new phase in Harry and Meghan's post-royal strategy, one focused less on duty and more on monetization, not quietly, not subtly, but openly. The idea being discussed is simple, but powerful, that they are leveraging the very thing they stepped away from, their royal identity. Because even without official titles, even without formal roles, that connection still carries weight. It still opens doors, it still draws attention, it still sells. And in Australia, that dynamic is on full display.
It'll run to hundreds of thousands of dollars to look after them over these 4 days.
From the hospital visit to the women's shelter, from the mental health summit to the luxury retreat, everything is interconnected. Every appearance feeds into a larger narrative. Every moment contributes to an image that is being carefully constructed in real time. An image of relevance, an image of purpose, but also an image of opportunity. And perhaps that's why the reaction feels so divided. Because for some, they are still doing meaningful work. They are still showing up, still using their platform to highlight important causes, still connecting with people in ways that feel personal and impactful. But for others, it feels different. It feels staged. It feels curated. It feels like something designed not just to help, but to be seen helping, to be photographed helping, to be remembered helping. And in a media environment where perception is everything, that distinction matters, because authenticity is no longer assumed. It's questioned, constantly. And nowhere is that more evident than in the subtle moments. The way crowds respond, the way silence replaces excitement, the way a simple greeting, a quiet hi, can carry more meaning than 1,000 cheers ever could.
Well, this is very much a non-royal royal tour. They are, of course, still to be named the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. However, it certainly doesn't have the same amount of pomp and ceremony that we saw when they last visited Australia in 2018.
Because that silence isn't empty. It's filled with uncertainty. Uncertainty about who they are, about what they represent, about whether this is still a story people want to believe in. And as their Australian visit continues, city to city, event to event, that uncertainty only grows. Because the deeper you look, the harder it becomes to ignore the contradictions. Compassion and commerce, connection and calculation, service and strategy, all existing side by side, all playing out in real time, and all leading to one unavoidable question. Not where they are, not what they're doing, but why? Why now? Why this? Why here? And most importantly, what are they really trying to become?
So if Harry and Meghan's trip to Australia was a dream in 2018, then in 2026, it's a horrible nightmare with controversy, anger, and recriminations around the visit.
By the time the Australian tour of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle reaches its final stretch, the conversation around them is no longer just about what they are doing. It's about what they represent, and whether anyone is still willing to interpret it in the way they intend. Because every stop on this trip has added another layer to the same question. And by now, it is impossible to ignore the weight of it. Are they still connected to the idea of royalty? Or have they fully transformed into something else entirely? On the surface, their schedule is packed with purpose. They move from one engagement to another with precision. One moment they are inside the Royal Children's Hospital, Melbourne, sitting with children facing serious illness, speaking gently, listening carefully, offering time and attention that feels deeply personal.
not thinking that the royal couple was going to be coming in on just a commercial airlines, on a Qantas flight, but actually taking a private jet. But it was QF94.
The next, they are in community spaces, at women's support services, at events focused on mental health and veterans' well-being. Each moment is designed to communicate meaning, to communicate service, to communicate relevance. And for some people watching, that message lands exactly as intended. But for others, it never quite settles. Because surrounding those same moments is a parallel reality that refuses to disappear. The images of Meghan Markle serving food in a women's shelter. The visuals of her moving through a kitchen, interacting with staff, presenting herself in a setting that is meant to signal humility and connection. The scenes of Harry speaking at mental health discussions, positioned as a leading voice in workplace well-being conversations. And then, layered on top of all of it, the commercial structure underneath. Ticketed events, paid retreats, high-priced access, exclusive experiences. A wellness retreat in Sydney, led by Meghan, that costs thousands of dollars to attend.
Although I'm not going to call it a tour, okay? They're not here formally as guest of government. They're not working royals. We know that now. This is a 4-day commercial venture to milk money out of Australians.
A conference appearance by Harry with multiple pricing tiers, depending on how close you want to be to the stage, the conversation, the experience itself. It is this duality that defines the entire tour. And it is this duality that fuels the backlash. Because while the public sees emotional moments, children smiling in hospital rooms, vulnerable communities being supported, heartfelt conversations in therapeutic gardens, they also see something else. A system, a structure, a brand being built in real time.
The Duke is not welcome in Australia, and that in fact the Australian people don't like Harry and they don't like Meghan. The direct quote: "Australians hate being used, and that's what these two proven troublemakers are doing."
And that's where the tension becomes unavoidable. Because when you strip everything back, the question is no longer whether they are doing good things. It is whether those good things exist independently, or whether they are part of something larger, something strategic, something intentional, something monetized. Critics have not been subtle about this. The language used around the visit has grown sharper with every passing day. Terms like quasi-royal tour have entered the conversation. So have accusations that the Sussexes are leveraging their former status as working royals to maintain global relevance, while simultaneously building a commercial empire. And that framing changes everything, because it reframes every moment. A hospital visit is no longer just a hospital visit. It becomes part of a narrative strategy. A charity appearance is no longer just charity. It becomes positioning.
The Duke and Duchess have stressed this tour is self-funded. There's been a lot of debate about who might pay for any police involvement. Blake, today I have seen no police accompanying them. They are in 2 private vehicles getting around town.
Even something as simple as a walk through a crowd becomes symbolic, analyzed, interpreted, dissected. And that is the environment they are now operating in. A world where nothing is neutral, not even silence, not even distance, especially not silence. Because one of the most striking details of this entire trip is not what was said, but what wasn't. The quiet reception, the muted reactions, the absence of overwhelming public euphoria that once defined their presence in Australia back in 2018, when they were still newly married, still working royals, still seen as the future of the monarchy. Back then, they were met with energy that felt almost unstoppable. Now, the energy is different, controlled, measured, in some moments, almost hesitant. That shift alone tells a story, even without commentary, and it raises another question that follows them everywhere they go. If public perception has changed, what does that mean for the identity they are trying to build now? Because make no mistake, they are still building it.
And it's Harry who has sparked outrage in particular, with a tour which is considered cynical, dishonest and insulting to Australians, as Harry and Meghan head to the New World to revive their flagging fortunes and to revive their flagging reputation.
Every engagement on this tour contributes to it. Every carefully chosen location adds to the image. Every speech, every interaction, every headline becomes part of a larger construction, a version of themselves that exists outside the monarchy, outside the institution that once defined them, but still very much shaped by it. And that is where the contradiction lives. They are no longer working royals. They have made that clear. They have built distance, independence, separation. And yet, the language surrounding them never fully lets go of the old framework.
Their first engagement tomorrow is an event for Movember. They'll be at Whitton Oval, also some Bulldogs players there. That's the first thing they have tomorrow morning.
They are still referred to as the Duke and Duchess, still framed through the lens of royal history, still compared to the institution they stepped away from. And that tension between who they were and who they are now is exactly what makes this tour so controversial. Because it is not just about Australia. It is about identity. It is about perception. It is about control over narrative. And in the age of global media, control is never guaranteed, which is why every moment of this visit feels magnified. Every handshake, every speech, every quiet reaction from the crowd, even the smallest details, like a subdued greeting in a hospital foyer or a brief comment about being back, become part of a much larger story that is no longer entirely in their control.
It is their first time here since 2018. Very different world for them now. They are no longer royals. They're no longer working royals. They're not addressed as His and Her Royal Highness anymore. They live in California. So a very different memory they will have from when they were here in Melbourne last time.
And then there is the financial layer that refuses to disappear. Despite assurances that the trip is privately funded, reports of public safety involvement continue to fuel debate. The idea that taxpayers may still be indirectly supporting security arrangements has triggered frustration, leading to a petition that has now gathered tens of thousands of signatures. That number matters because it represents more than disagreement. It represents resistance. And resistance in this context is not just about money, it is about meaning, about whether this kind of visit should still carry any association with public responsibility at all. And so the cycle continues. Every appearance generates admiration and criticism at the same time. Every emotional moment is mirrored by skepticism.
This is absolutely hideous. The Sussex's money-grabbing fake royal trip to Australia is already a hot mess. It's a public relations dumpster fire. It is a disaster.
Every attempt at connection is followed by questions about intention. And through it all, the same underlying uncertainty remains. Are Harry and Meghan still part of a story people believe in? Or are they now simply performing one that once belonged to them? Because as their Australian tour comes to an end, there is no single conclusion that resolves everything. No final moment that clarifies who they are. No definitive answer that settles the debate. Only a growing realization that the space they now occupy is no longer simple, not royal, not entirely celebrity, something in between. And perhaps that is why this visit feels so different, because it is not just a tour, it is a mirror, reflecting back not only who they are, but how the world has decided to see them. If you want daily updates on the latest news around the Sussexes and everything happening during their Australia tour, make sure to subscribe to Crown Clash so you don't miss what happens next. Drop a like if you want more breakdowns like this and comment below your thoughts. Do you think this is a new chapter for Harry and Meghan or just another controversial move in their post-royal journey?